What's up, YouTube? Info in the description. 2020 Tantra on Amazon. Yeah, info's in the description. That's it. So, scheming for understanding. Made myself blind trying to make people see. You can't teach consciousness. It's one of those things like anything where you can only help those that want to help themselves. So, it's a one hand wash the other type of situation. So, it'll never be a forced thing that will bring about peace, or will bring, peace is prosperity. So as far as, however, you can't really separate them. So as far as this scheming for understanding, editing yourself so that you can supposedly teach somebody something that you think that they need to know. Again, that comes down to you having this idea of knowing, or this idea of control. Whenever you have a problem with control, it means you have a problem with the design. So you need to look at the design from a different angle, because there's never a problem with the design, because it's perfect. I mean, it's always a perfect balancing act. Even the imbalance of the world shows the extreme forms of balance. So it's always that. So whenever you edit or bend yourself, reverse psychology, tough love, whatever, what have you, you're stepping away from yourself. You're creating a buffer from yourself to try to make somebody know something that you think they should know. A gorilla doesn't have to ask another gorilla another question or try to manipulate them like that. They know that everything knows, and they know that all is all. Everything is everything. So, but that puts you, it's one of them things that puts you in that sunken place. As far as the sunken place, I mean like the buffer between you and your emotions, or the buffer between you, or you and your core, or whatever. Like the things that, I guess you could say the sunken place is the concept of you. Which is distant from the observer, which is the true you, the true will, and the core you that is manifesting everything else. Because the deeper you go inside your supposed self, because there is no self, but this concept of self, the deeper you go into yourself is the sunken place, and then that's where you're observing the actual course, because you're living in this movie or this idea of self instead of observing the course. It's the true course. It's not something that that has to be thought about or anything like that. You're watching that because it's from a distant, detached point, because you're stuck in the idea and staying in the laws of being this concept. So that puts you in the sunken place. That puts you in that distance from your emotions. That puts you in that distance from the actual movie or the actual course, like your true dream. So you're observing your life from a passenger position, from the sunken place. And like a lot of that has to do with feeling like there should be something done, as there's imperfection in the world, or that something's wrong, like the imperfections aren't perfections in a sense. So like whenever you want to tamper, life just tampers with you, and then you get more and more of a buffer created between you and you, the true you, the infinite observer. So basically it's emotional padding. Like I always say, it's emotional insulation that's created, that puts you in that sunken place. And like when you go to that place, coming back from it, it's always painful, because you're going back to the things that brought about you returning to it, because you go to it as a form of coping with the process. You feel like something is incorrect, or is something is wrong or whatever. So you go to this place, you go inside this concept of you to buffer you from the actual you that is observing and witnessing and manifesting, or whatever, however you want to look at that. So you go to that place out of fear to stay in the concept instead of stay in the actual movie or stay in the actual course. So as far as like parallel lives or whatever, people really get lost in the ideas or the hallucinations, the daydreams, and they take that into REM sleep and all that, and time is not something that is involved in this really. Time, a lot of it has to do with the pain. The more pain filled your life is, the more you're gonna be worried about time in general anyway. So it's more so alignment. It's just cycles of alignment. And just knowing where the light is and where the darkness is, within you and around you, and then that's more so what timing is and being on time. But that's another topic. I just want to say, as far as like the sunken place and coming back from it, because you ran to it out of fear to cope, then you come back from it and you're going. You're thinking your way back into the course instead of being. You're like you're human thinking or a human thinker or whatever instead of a human being or a human doer or whatever. You're human instead of just being. Now you're thinking. You're trying to think your way through life, and there's just no way that you can. It's exhausting. It's just exhausting to try to think your way through life to that. So, but the course continues to repeat, and then you continually create circumstances that bring about that same pain so that you can get reminded of the trauma so that you can get back on course. So it could just to remind you what you don't need. So with the pain is more so there for like holding on to things you don't need, and that the pain from that is just your signal. This is just your alarm pretty much. So really the editing for others' sake, for your own sake, like you're suppressing yourself for your own emotional insulation, and then you're suppressing for, I guess, to protect other people from their emotions. All that editing process just holds everybody back, and then everything just stays miserable. But if you give back, if you just accept the breath, then you can start to unwind that. But a lot of people, they think something so subtle has nothing to do with that, but the breath regulates the thought, and the thought has a lot to do with everything in an air age. Because you gotta think about it like the mind is dragging the body. There's no separation, but it's two sides to one coin. The body is the mind in 3D, but the mind is more so dragging the body. Like you think something, then you do it. Whether you think it visually or auditorily, it's like I'm getting up to go sit over here and change my seat. Like then the body is dragged by the thought or whatever, by the inspiration from that idea. It's coming from a visual or auditory thought or something received in a subtle way. It's mental or metaphysical before physical, however you want to look at it. So the body's being dragged. That's how you see people that look good for periods of time, and then all of a sudden they just look terrible because the body caught up with the mind. So, for me, it's just crazy once you go to and fro that sunken place. Like it's wild, man. Because once you know better, you figured you do better. You just it's levels to the sick. So you still go through your uprooting and just in a different, more graceful way. Like, it's like the way to the way. It's like, you got good decisions and God decisions or whatever. It's like how you got white and black Tantra, and then you have celibacy. So you have like all out lust. Then you have your Tantra, your forms of Tantra. Then so then you get to your highest levels, which would be no more releasing, and then your highest level of being content would be celibacy. So that's like the way to the way. Just dropping and needing less, then you can give more, then you can receive more, and your cup is getting smaller. So it's big for you, which you're receiving, but maybe to the world it's not big. But your cup has changed because your perception has changed, and you know that needing less is having more. So that's where you need to be comfortable with yourself, and if you begin to bend there to try to deal with other people's perceptions, then you start to slip into the sunken place, and it's a slippery slope. And I just got better. For me personally, I got better at uprooting. I got more and more graceful at it, but it's always a period where that you're reaching a precipice where you have to, shit or get off the pot, really. So it's like, where are you manifesting from? Where are you centralizing your blood? And whether it's me practicing Tantra to the point where I can control it and control a bunch of other bodies and transmute energy through a bunch of other bodies, and since I'm good at it, I can teach other things through that. It's just the most graceful way to uproot myself. So it's still ultimately something that I have to rewire and change, just like everything, just like going from vegan to raw vegan, from raw vegan to liquidarian to mainly breath, to just water here and there, and to all the way breath, whatever. That's it's the same process. Like the same thing with the sexual thing. Like it's really just allowing yourself to fill those holes instead of continually seeking external filling, because there's no way that can sustain. There's no way that can keep up. It's just band-aids. People come and sticking temporarily, together like band-aids. So like, you heal, then you release. You heal, then you release. But people want to keep hurting themselves so they can keep going through that process because they're comfortable with that process, and they like to take the step back, to take the step forward, to feel as though they've taken a step forward. It's that illusory step forward. But just staying at zero, then the world is yours. You don't own anything, nothing owns you. So all the info's in the description. 2020 Tantra on Amazon. Put a lot into the text. If you guys would want to know more about just the lifestyle that brings about these thoughts or this stream here, because it's a whole lifestyle. If people could experience sex on this level, it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be an item, because we're all capable of it. So it's special, but it's not special. Like again, like every snowflake is different, but we're all snowflakes. So it's the same thing. Then you just start to respect the energy and the frequency, and you just respect the recipe of the world and the way things are going. You respect the Tao. You respect the will of the universal will, which is your truest will, and it brings about your truest intention. And if you're going against that, you destroy this idea of yourself. You destroy everything, all the reflections of self, and then you go back to the source in an unconscious way. But there's many ways, there's many Taos, and yeah. So info's in the description. 2020 Tantra on Amazon. Let me know if you want to fast in California and Kings Canyon on my property. And I got the books, like I said, 2 audio books and 33 PDFs. And you can also get them in paperback on Amazon. So if you search Arbud Vegan or 2020 Tantra on Amazon. So yeah, the info's in the description. And hit me up on the gram or anything, any form of social media.